All right, on this Garlic Marketing Show, we're going to speak about the importance of sales marketing in exiting and actually transforming a digital agency or any business, but really we're going to focus on digital agencies because I've got the expert in digital agency exits or sales, Todd Taskey from Potomac Business Capital. Todd, say hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Todd's also the host of the Second Bite podcast, but we're going to talk about how to scale through actually selling your agency, how you can actually scale through that. It's a very interesting concept. We're going to talk about the keys to growing a great company, the number one thing that affects multiples in digital agencies, how to find the perfect recipe, where to find the perfect recipe to make your company an acquisition target, how to stop losing clients. And if you want to get back to the beginning, how to do that, and why one SEO company with $2 million in EBITDA had a hard time selling, as well as the number one thing to get to $1 million in EBITDA and beyond. We got to stay towards the end of that. All this on the Garlic Marketing Show. But of course, this is brought to you by Video Case Story. One of the best things to grow your company, any company, is to A, have customer stories, and B, have them on YouTube. Go to videocasestory.com and follow us there, where we can show you how to grow your business using video case stories and YouTube. All right, let's get started.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
All right. Todd, tell us a little bit about how you got into this.
You know, I spent my first 20 years as a financial planner and then was ready for a second career and kind of meandered into doing investment banking. And then we did a couple of interesting transactions, got back in 04, 05. And the people that I worked for, that I enjoyed working with the most, were in the digital marketing space. And it's just kind of continued to grow out from that, right? The digital marketing space attracts a certain personality type that I work with well and like and enjoy helping and serving. So I've kind of drifted into that vertical.
And you do, I mean, you don't just help with the sale of business. You do it in a different way. You describe, because I think this is really important. And as it relates to the Second Bite podcast, describe how you're a different than just your normal quote unquote business program.
Yeah. So there's this acronym in the world of transaction called the Second Bite. So if I sell my business, and when you sell your business, there's three forms of money, if you will, that people can give you, of currency. Currency one is cash, super big fan of that. Number two is equity in the mothership. And number three is earnout. And as a side note, and we can talk a bunch on it if you wanted to, or at another time, but our clients get almost all of their earnout. And the planning for that starts way back when we designed the deck, let alone negotiate an earnout. But that's part of it. And so, for a lot of our clients, they will get 50 or 60 or 70% of the value in cash at close. And then they will also get equity in the acquiring company. And that is typically a tax-free transfer. So there's no tax on the stock that you roll forward. And then the hope is, on our podcast is Second Bite Podcast. And I would encourage people, if you want to, go listen to it, because it's where you can hear from other founders and agency owners about transactions they've done. One of the guys on there is a guy named Grayson LaFrance. And Grayson is the now executive chairman of Power Digital. Quick story there. Power Digital is about 5 million of EBITDA, going back a half dozen years. They sold to a private equity group in Chicago called Periscope Equity. In 3 years, Ian, they grew them to 30 million of EBITDA, from 5 to 30 in 3 years. And they sold them to a larger private equity group called Court Square, 19 times EBITDA. the investment team, the founders, and the first tuck-in guys got 13 times on the equity they rolled forward. 13 times.
Wow.
They partner with Court Square, which is a great group of people. They put new money on the balance sheet, and they want to grow it even larger still. The first acquisition they did is this deal right here that we did with them called Sproutward. And the second one is that one on the end called Andra. And those guys are working towards the exact same thing. And most of these trophies that are here on my desk, that's what the client wants to do. They don't want to exit their business and they don't want to retire from their business. But there's a bunch of stuff they know they could do if they had more resources, more people, more help. And it's emotionally and mentally really helpful for founders when they know that they've got X amount of money in the bank. We sold a company a bunch of years ago called Social SEO. And my client's husband and wife team, they're in their 50s. And he said, Todd, when we got the cash at close, because we've been doing well for a while and we bank money, but when we got that cash at close, man, we were set. We were done. And so our risk tolerance went from 3 all the way up to 10. You know what else helps with risk tolerance? Spend private equity's money on everything you want to do.
Yeah, other people's money makes it easier to risk, right?
It sure does. And so if you find the people that complement you, and the interesting thing is at the size, so all of our clients are 1 million of EBITDA to 5 million of EBITDA. They're in that range. When you acquire businesses in that size and put few of them together, when you're under 10 million or 20 million of EBITDA, you cannot cut your way to profitability. You need to grow. And you need more good people, not fewer. So it creates a tremendous opportunity. It will always create an opportunity for the founder, but it creates a ton of opportunity for the team underneath that founder. And it creates real career opportunities that people get excited about because the company's going somewhere.
That's amazing. And so, when people are listening to this and they're going, well, how do I get to the point where I'm at the 2 million, 3 million? How do I become as attractive as possible to one of these private equity firms or to a large agency? What are some of the things that you tell them, especially like in their marketing and their sales and their business, that they should be focusing on to get these types of deals?
Yeah, great question. So number one, last thing you want to do is not have a deal close. The number one reason a deal doesn't close is because you, the founder, you don't have your financials right. You're not accrued for properly. You're not GAAP compliant, whatever the case may be. Get that done, right? You can outsource to a CFO. I hear people like don't want to spend the money on it. And every single guy that has is thankful that they have, because a CFO adds real value. If you don't have one or know one, then we'll introduce you to somebody. There's plenty of people that do that and do that really, really well. So from that standpoint, your financials have to be locked down. The two biggest, so your value of your business is going to be a multiple against your EBITDA, your adjusted EBITDA. And we will adjust back all the stuff you've been taking out of the business to benefit yourself. Your car, your salaries you're paying the kids, the company trips you take and expense them through, all that stuff will just add back. So all that becomes your EBITDA. And then there'll be a multiple against that. What impacts your multiple the most is how much of your revenue is recurring revenue and what is your retention like. So those two factors will have the biggest impact. So one of the things I tell people a lot, so when we go into a process with somebody, and it sounds magnanimous, but we're pretty selfish with clients that we work with. We only will work with people we know we can get closed. And one of the things I tell founders is this: if we do a process, the only reason that you won't sell, that you won't do a turn, is because you don't get the value that you think is right. And we can give them a pretty good range on where we think the market will come out. But here's the important thing. if you don't get the right value when you're trying to sell your business, as we go through the process, you're going to talk to 10 or 12 or 20 smart people that own a checkbook and know your business, know your industry. And you will hear over and over and over again a similar theme for whatever it is in your business. We don't like the fact that you do too much of this, and you don't do enough of that, and then there's the other thing, right? So then one of two things happens. You say, all right, well, we didn't get the value we wanted. So on the next 2 years that we're going to work at this, you know what we're going to work on? We're going to fix this, that, and the other thing. I mean, that's the actual recipe, not from me and not from some consultant, but from the market itself. Incredibly valuable. The other potential outcome is you look at your partner or you look in the mirror and you say, let me tell you something. To fix this, that, and the other thing, that's a pretty heavy lift. And to get just a little bit more to fix this, that, and the other thing, man, it's just not worth it. But I understand now, and I understand because it's not one person's opinion. I've heard this from multiple buyers over and over and over again. Some buyers might say, let me tell you what, if you came in with us, this and that, we merge perfectly well. We'll complement each other. No problem. That'd be great for us. And so typically clients will get those kind of opportunities, and then they're off to, a bigger and better future.
Love it. And, when someone's looking at those pieces that are missing, right? In general, what does that look like?
So what I hear most when guys are losing customers, why do you lose a customer? Well, we are really good at SEO, but they went with the group that does SEO and paid and social, or, we only do one niche or whatever the case may be. So oftentimes you'll get somebody that's real, because that's how a lot of businesses start, right? You and I work for a group. That group's, we think they're not doing the right way SEO. We know a bunch of people in the carpet cleaning business, so we're going to launch a business that does SEO for carpet cleaners. Mm-hmm. And then gradually we realize, geez, that we're doing really well here. We can do paid. And you say, Todd, we don't know how to do paid. And so now the option becomes, well, we'll learn while we're spending/wasting the customer's money until we get good at it. A lot of guys are uncomfortable with that. And they're not qualified to buy another agency that does paid. So the question then becomes, do I want to hold all the risk in the company and then try to go buy something else and then hope that I got the right partner and then hope that that works well and then do a transaction? Or will I just be that guy that adds that SEO to a larger offering already? And so part of that depends on, what I talk to a lot of guys and they, that are a couple million of EBITDA. And I say, what do you want to do, with the transaction? And they say, I want to go back to the beginning. I don't want an HR manual. I don't want accounts payable. If I could just sell stuff, not worry about utilization, not worrying about any of these other things, just sell and bring it home. And man, I would love doing that. And I have other guys that say, listen, I want to build a business in my image and likeness. We can figure out paid. It's not that hard. We can add other pods so that we're doing paid, so that we're doing social, and we can do inbound with HubSpot or whatever the case may be. So it's really just setting a course in a direction and then deciding how much of that risk do you want to keep on your own to, continue to grow. And last quick point, when I met Grayson, the friends from Power Digital, he came to town, made an offer for a client of mine. That client was about $1.9 million of EBITDA. The offer was $12 million in cash, $3 million in stock, all of it at close. He would have been the first tuck-in. So if you remember the story, they got 13x on that money. So 3 times 13. Okay. My guy passed on that deal. And he passed on that deal because he wanted to do it himself. And as I just said, I was disappointed because it was such a great offer. and Power hadn't become Power Digital yet, right? They were doing their first acquisition. And so then we focused in on the private equity groups we had spoken to, and he just way over negotiated, was unreasonable on his terms, all that kind of stuff. And so the private equity group that we were working with finally said, you know what, I'm out. We pass. I said, well, don't pass. Let me show you another company. These guys at Social SEO. So he passed on two big opportunities. That was 4 years ago. I think they closed last year about 2.1 million of EBITDA.
Wow.
Because it's hard. All of it's hard. Everybody listening to this knows their business is hard. When you've built something to the point that somebody else is attracted to it and then will write you a significant check, that's an accomplishment that very few founders ever get to.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's super interesting because it's like it's different ways of thinking of exiting the business where it becomes a game changer versus just exiting and going to work for someone else, right? And starting all over. And what do you find, like if someone's at a smaller point, right? Because you're talking 1 million, 2 million EBITDA, which very small percentage of agencies get to. What do you tell those smaller agencies that are, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, sub-million in EBITDA?
Yeah, figure out what you want to do. And the reason why I have learned over time, the reason why some companies grow rapidly and others not as much, is because of the risk tolerance of the owner. And I don't know that you should punish yourself for having a lower risk tolerance and not wanting to grow fast. I mean, if you still have to put kids through school and pay a mortgage and do all these other kind of things, I mean, this is what life is about, trying to find a balance to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say to somebody that owns their own agency, employs several people, does great work for their clients, and makes $500,000, I would say, congratulations, you are a successful person in the game of life. That's fantastic. Do you want to take your 500 grand of EBITDA or profit, scale it back to half of that amount, and reinvest in sales and marketing? And then the infrastructure to do that? Because if you do, I'm sure you can get there. You can get there much faster than the track you're on now. And this is the part I want you to hear loudly. There's nothing wrong with the track you're on now, unless you say so, unless you want to go faster, do something bigger, whatever the case may be. The challenge is, let's just say that an agency trades for, 6 or 7 times. So on a $2 million business, that's roughly $15 million. On a $500,000 business, it's $3.5 million. The quality of earnings that the buyer has to do cost exactly the same. There's no inexpensive 90-page legal document. There's no inexpensive employment agreement, right? It's difficult and time-consuming and expensive. And I just can't afford to do it for $500,000 of additional EBITDA.
Yep.
Unless there's something super sexy and important about that. And one of the great things about this industry is that there's not that one magic pill that makes everything work, right? So from that standpoint, there's so much drag or friction to a transaction that most companies say you got to be at least $1 million of it. Now, I have a deal over here. We sold a company called Worth e-commerce.
Yep.
They do email marketing for e-commerce customers only. 900 and something million of EBITDA. Real nice little package in terms of who they are. And we showed that package around a bunch of people, and a few raised their hand. We wound up selling to a group called SmartBug, a big HubSpot partner, because it was a simple story. I'll tell you this, we had this a few years ago, had a group doing almost 2 million of EBITDA in SEO, literally right down our fairway. I said, this is it, let's go. So we did. And what I heard over and over and over again is, yeah, we're already doing SEO. Well, how much EBITDA? 2 million? We have on our priority list, we need to get better at social. We need to get better at outbound. We need to get better at a whole bunch of things. 2 million doesn't move the needle as much, and we already feel like we're good at SEO. And I was very surprised by that outcome. and we eventually found a place for them, but it was different than what we thought. And this is the beauty of asking the market, right? Nobody cares about our feelings and what we think is right, right? It is true commerce and tough love.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like everything, right? Listening to the market. But you said something really interesting: investing in sales and marketing, especially at that 500K point. Is that where you usually find is like the big issue? Because I know I've talked to some of the bigger agencies and John Morris and those guys, and they just dump everything back into sales marketing. Is that the mindset that you see missing usually in that real hyperbolic growth?
Yes, I'm going to take it a step further. One phrase that private equity has never issued: we're going to hire a sales guy next year. They don't do that. They build a sales function. You know what that means? That means a manager and 3 salespeople. You know what that means? Almost $1 million. Yeah. You know who's paying for that? You are, unless you have a private equity partner. Private equity doesn't care. I don't care about EBITDA in year 1. I care about EBITDA in year 5. This is what we do, man. Let's go. First of all, go get a recruiter, because we're going to freaking find these people. I don't know where we're going to find them. Go get a recruiter, get a manager, get 3 salespeople, light the whole thing up. By the way, pay for inbound leads so they have somebody to call, and let's go. We're going to invest in a sales function for a $50 million business. Well, wait a sec. We're only a $10, $12 million business. I know. I don't care. Right? And that's the big, I would never do that. I'm making $1 million a year. I've got a great house. I've got a second house at the beach. My kids are in college. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm not going to spend, I'll rather take 3 or 4 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'll tell you, selling, and everybody knows this, selling is hard, very hard. It's even harder when I'm the only sales guy, because it sucks and I have nobody to share that with. And you know what the boss is saying? What the hell? Because the boss, the people listening to this, are great natural salespeople. Just call the guy and tell him about what we do and why, and he'll sign up. And the sales guy doesn't have the same oomph that the founder does. So that is probably the biggest thing that accelerates growth, and it's not easy. And by the way, they know how to do that. The CEO now, we're going to add on sales manager to their already full schedule. It's hard to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, though, the buyer is going to look at, so you're a $2 million EBITDA business. Now, when I buy it, is it still going to be a $2 million EBITDA business? Part of the answer is, well, yeah, look at our retention, look at how much is recurring, but look at our pipeline report. Look at how we're generating leads on a regular basis. Look at all these things. All of these are what you get the machine that makes all this work.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely see it. I was just having this discussion with someone else too, who works with agencies, and how many agencies are so reluctant to really get into sales and marketing. But the guys that really crush it are either come from a sales background or they invest heavily into sales and marketing. And it's an irony that you have to tell agencies to do that. But to your point, it's what's going to make the big bucks. And so awesome. So let's get into where to find you. We've got the Second Bite podcast. We've got your website, PotomacBusinessCapital.com. We'll put a link to all that in the show notes. Tell us a little bit who you've had on your podcast and what's your favorite few episodes.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So the podcast, the feedback I get on the podcast is it's great, because I don't get a chance to, and this is fine. I'm happy to hear about a banker talking about his tales. I'd rather hear from a guy that I know, that's been in the trenches, that's also a founder, that's put up with all the crap I put up with. And so that's what that is about. We have a couple of series. So, and there's just a bunch of people. Some of them are the guys behind these trophies, and they just talk about the experience of what all this was like. We did a series called the Founders Series, and we've got John Morris. You mentioned him. John was on that. And I asked a question. For example, question number 1 was, do I have a boss now? So I did a transaction. Now we're at post-close. Do I have a boss? And I got 8 people, 8 founders that talked about what it was like post-close. When should I tell my team? How do I know if the time is right to sell? So that was very topic driven. That's excellent. And then I have a series that we're posting right now called PE Insights. Same thing. So first episode was just out. What do you look for in a deck? Right. This is how people tell the story of their company. So what do you look for in a deck? And then I had 8 guys in a row give answers to here's how many decks we get. Here's how we look at them. Here's how we think about them. Here's how we process them. And then we're going to go through talking about different topics there. So I think I do get great feedback from it. People think it's a good resource. It's just kind of like we're doing now. It's interesting just to hear the experience of somebody that went through good, bad, and ugly, because doing transactions are all of those things.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear, because really otherwise all you hear about is the dollar amount. You might hear about some of the stories, but not really. And you don't hear about everything that went to it, everything that happened. I think it's a fantastic thing. And also, even if you're not thinking about selling, it's a fantastic thing to think about, to reflect on your business, isn't it?
Yeah. And then 100%, I think you'll see that. And then, I'm easily found on LinkedIn. So anybody that wants to reach out, say hello, and I'm happy to connect, and we can stay in touch that way. And if I can be helpful, or somebody wants some insights, I'm happy to provide that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put a link to all that in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, the links will be down below. Todd, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you invited me. Yeah. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thank you. And thank you all for taking Todd and I on your journey. It's been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.